Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight to celebrate the launch of Diminished, which is book two in the Elder Tree Trilogy by Erica. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the book. We're going to have her read a few passages, I believe, and just give you guys a chance as well to ask some questions about things that you may want to know about. So, first off, Erica, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling very tired. I'm ready for a vacation.
It's been a grind for you, with
Yeah.
book one and then going straight into getting this set up and ready to go. And
Mm. Yeah,
uh,
it's going to be 7 months since Tarnished released on Thursday, I think. So, and tomorrow marks however many months till January when the third book comes out. So, yeah, it's
that's
back to
crazy.
back.
You do better than I do because I would lose my mind.
I If you asked my spouse, he'd probably say I have.
I mean, to be honest, all writers are probably like that. It's just we're built a little bit different.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Well, the book is taking place almost 2 years after the end of Tarnished. So there's a little bit of a bridge in time, a time jump, if you will, from the end of book one. And we are looking to the future. Minor spoilers, but we're looking to the future of what is this world now that there is a new sovereign in the kingdom, now queendom, and what happens after you've had generational hatred towards people who are different and people who practice different things, but now it's being accepted. How does that kind of ripple out within the land and the people who have been kind of raised to distrust and hate these people, or have been raised to hide that part of themselves. So we're jumping ahead and we're looking at, like, what is that outcome? What is that? How is that going? And what other repercussions are there from having that existence for so long within the kingdom?
Right. One thing I really liked with your covers is like the first one is more of a fall, really yellows and the oranges, and this one is more of a darker green.
Mhm.
Um, is that more representative of what's going on at the specific time of year in the book, or is that just you're like I want to do leaves, leaves, leaves?
um Well, I do love a good tree. Trees are very prominent in all of my books, not just the Elder Tree Trilogy. There's always something to do with a tree. But it's very specific to a part of the book, and also it is specific to the time frame that it's happening. So Tarnished was taking place all through autumn, and Diminished is a summer book. It's taking place in the summer, while the third book, Vanquished, is going to be taking place like almost instantaneously after the end of Diminished, but getting more into the late summer, early fall. So kind of maybe this time of year in the next couple of weeks. So you're getting more of those, like that blend of the summer and autumn colors again. Hopefully, I haven't seen a draft of the third cover, but my cover design artist and I have a really great relationship, and she's basically created everything that I've envisioned with the last two books. So I imagine that's going to be the direction we go with the third.
Probably. I mean, I have not yet seen it either, so I have nothing to add to that. Um, Looks like we got some comments rolling in. Courtney says happy release day. So does Buggleton. Adventures with Coffee. Hi, Courtney. Hello. Courtney asks, why did you decide to bring in Rosin's POV in this book?
I I knew what I wanted of Rasheen from the beginning of Tarnished. I knew who her character was, but in Tarnished, I feel that her character, you see it from a very outsider's point of view, and you don't really trust her. You don't really know what she's about. You don't know what she's up to, and she's not like very present in the book. And when she is, she's kind of distant and removed. And I knew that there is a reason for that, and I didn't feel that Tarnished was necessarily the place to go into that. But for Diminished, that was my opportunity. So I was able to really dive in, and I feel like in through diving into her history, I was able to flesh out the world a little bit more, and bring more context to the generational trauma and laws of the land, and also bring in additional context to the royal family and what exactly was going on there and why everything is the way it is. So,
So did you have her story completely planned when you finished Tarnished, or were you like, okay, I think this is the direction I want to go for Diminished, kind of highlighting her backstory and kind of what she is to the story?
I had the general plot of Diminished and Vanquished figured out before I was finished, like fine tuning Tarnished. Like I had already written it, and then I was just going through the endless repetitive edits of Tarnished, and that's when I was already starting to think about Diminished and Vanquished. And I knew I wanted to include Rasheen in it, but I wasn't at first entirely sure if I was going to have her be present day, like as a part of like everyone else. But ended up going with in Diminished, it's past, it's flashbacks. It's all of her chapters that she's included in are flashbacks of her past and her kind of rising to power and how where she started and where she like now is, where she is queen. Or formerly queen. But yeah, I like that wasn't really decided until I began to draft, and then I was like, okay, it has to be flashbacks. And then book 3, it's all present. She has her own chapters, and she is fully part of the story and witnessing everything that everyone else is witnessing.
Oh, good. So we'll get to see more of her full present day journey in book
Yes.
3 then.
Yeah.
Courtney asks, oh, we got to scroll up. We're getting a lot of people can. Courtney says, we love all of our children equally, of course. If you can't choose a favorite, then what's the thing you love most about each of your main characters?
Yeah, I can't choose a favorite. My favorite always kind of bounces around depending on like what part of the book we're talking about, or like even chapters. I'm like, oh, I love this chapter. I love the character in this chapter, but like overall, I can't really decide. I love how protective and brave Greer is. I love that Katrina is kind of a soft cinnamon roll despite facing a lot of hardships. Like she's generally like a nice person. And I feel like she has more than enough reason to not be a nice person. um I love Aelith for the simple fact that I added all of my own neurodivergent quirks into her, and so she is very much a neurodivergent character, and she's still like busting ass and like doing all these amazing things. And I want that in literature, that like just there's sometimes this perspective that neurodivergent people can't do everything, um and that isn't always like they can do just as much as anyone else.
Exactly.
And I love Rasheen. I love her character. I love the backstory of her, and that, much like what Courtney said, she will do anything. Like she can't really choose a favorite child, and she will do anything for her children. And I love that about her. So yeah, the bad guys are the characters I don't like. They're the ones that I really hate. The good ones, I love them all.
It always seems to happen that way. Um, Adventures with Coffee asked that it's awesome that the way you wrote the character between books, that it's helped you progress the book, did you have any difficulty in switching between the POV of going flashback and forward?
Not really, because, and I did this with Tarnished as well, I have a tendency to write all if the characters are separate from everyone else, I will sit there and I will write all their chapters at once. So for Rasheen, I wrote all of her chapters at once, completely separate from the rest of the story. I think it might have been the first thing that I wrote for Diminished was just her backstory chapters. Then for everyone else, there's a lot of this book where Greer is separate from Aelith and Katrina. So I wrote Greer's chapters next, like one at a time after an after, like to get all of Greer's stuff written. And then I worked on Katrina and Aelith, and that was a little bit more tricky for me because I'm hopping back and forth and they're in the same scene, so it's like I have to switch points of view and stuff like that. So that's where it becomes a little bit more tricky for me, and it's a lot of like refinement and editing and just kind of like taking a step back. And sometimes I would only pull out like all of Aelith's chapters and only edit those, and then I would go and switch only to Kate so that I was like still in their voice in my mind. Because I did notice at first when I was switching back and forth that there's a couple chapters where like when I was reading it later down the line, I was like, wait, this sounds like Aelith, but it's supposed to be Kate. So yeah, I just like try to wipe them out completely and separate them from the story as much as I can.
I was going to ask you if that got confusing, because that would confuse me.
Yeah. It also helps. I outline, so I would have everything written down of like where everything's supposed to go. But yeah, it has to be separate because yeah, it gets confusing otherwise.
Well, do you want to read one of the passages for us?
Sure thing. I haven't read this part out or any of these parts out loud, so forgive me because I'm probably going to mess up. I wanted to actually read one of the earlier flashbacks of Rasheen's. So like I said, all of Rasheen's chapters in this book are flashbacks to pre-Tarnished times. So this is going back all the way to when she had met Kearney, her future husband and the king of the kingdom. So we all know about him if we've read Tarnished. So in this, she is discussing her leaving with Kearney, and in leaving, she's abandoning the orphanage that she grew up in, and also her best friend Kale, who's an important character from Tarnished. Anyway, let's see, where am I starting? All right. Will it be worth it to lose everything in the process? There's that risk too, Ro, and you know it. You could lose everything. You could lose us. You could lose yourself. Are you willing? Kale, she sighed. Frustration spread in her chest and made her tingle with unease. His emotions were a storm of betrayal, jealousy, and sadness, scratching at her skin and coating her teeth. The worst of it all is you've fallen in love with him and you won't even admit it, not even to yourself, but it's plain to see. Rasheen's jaw dropped, but he didn't wait for her reply. He turned and retreated into the boys' room without another word. Rasheen was alone in the hall, her cheeks hot with emotion, the whisper of winter's wind easing through the drafty windows, her only company. Kearney left, their lives continued, and the ice between her and Kale began to thaw until Kearney returned a month later, and with him a cold snap. Everything iced over. The streams, the water troughs, and even the deep breaths brought a swell of frost to one's throat. But worst of all was the coldness from Kale when he saw Kearney request Rasheen's hand in marriage outside the orphanage door. People called it a whirlwind romance. Rasheen called it a success. She always heard things move quickly with royalty, but she didn't care. Kale was wrong. She wasn't in love, not very much. She had a plan and hastily jotted ingredients on a piece of paper she sewed into her dress's hem. all the ingredients necessary to concoct spells to aid achieving her dreams. She'd do it in the name of her dead mother, in the name of the people in Caramithlin who hid in their homes, afraid to expose their pointed ears to Kearney's directed sight, and in particular for Kale. You don't understand, she pleaded as she folded her summer cloak and tucked it into her bag. She turned, her heart physically pulling towards Kale's form. He stood at the foot of her bed, his hands gripping the footboard, and his expression pinched in anguish. Nothing's going to change if we stay in this village. We can't just sit here like waiting ducks, hoping the king will take kindly to our magic. We need to do more, and I can do more. I can convince him magic is good, and I can save our kind. But you haven't the faintest idea how evil that family is, Kale pleaded, following Rasheen as she weaved her way out of the orphanage. I've seen it. I've seen what they do to our kind. I saw it done to my parents. Rasheen hesitated. It was so rare that Kale spoke of his parents. Whenever he did, she would listen. But this time, it didn't stop her. That's King Donald's doing. Kearney's different. I'll work on him so he'll be better once he's king. They won't listen to you. You're nothing to them. Rasheen spun on her heel, facing Kale directly, with fire flashing in her eyes. I may be nothing now, Kale, but I'll be a great something, and I'll prove you wrong. I'll end the line of gabbly men's terror and make something wonderful grow in its place. Just watch.
Wow. That's deep.
Thank you.
It is. It captures the attention enough. You're like, okay, is there more? Like, that's good though, because you want. Sometimes I feel like it's hit or miss. Like you open a book and you're like, you get like 4 or 5 pages in, and you're like, do I keep going? Do I not? And then like that, where it's right away, it just punches you in the gut. And you're like, oh, tell me more.
Yeah, I love her chapter so much.
It looks like let me scroll back here. I think I've missed a few questions for some people. Courtney asks, what or who inspired your villain Malcolm?
I to keep it I don't know, family friendly. I'm not going to say who inspired Malcolm, but I will say that I looked at world history, whether current or past, and I looked at tendencies of certain rulers and the things that they would do. And I based that heavily on the creation of Kearney and Malcolm both. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I mean, well, that's the good thing though. Is like there's no shortage of examples and things to go back and pull from, because in the history of the world, we've had so many rulers and dictators, whether it be good or bad or just completely downright terrible, to be able to kind of grab a basis or a baseline off of.
Yeah.
For characters. Liz says, oh, hi. Frederick Eberhardt says, you're amazing, Erica. Let's see here. Bugleton says, did you have a specific inspiration for the magical traditions that are reemerging in Diminished?
Just about all of the monsters, I wouldn't say all, because like dragons and wyverns and cockatrices and things like that, those are traditional creatures from way back when. But characters like the Drowning Dukes and the Marrow Maidens and Caroling Countesses are all creatures that I created. And I did get inspired by a lot of folklore creatures from Europe, various places, whether it be the UK or Eastern Europe or Scandinavia. So many of these creatures that are in myth and legend have kind of these tendencies that either they were like created by they were formerly human and they were created because of some wrong or some injustice or some evil thing, or they were just creatures that they were born as that creature. And often the main goal of these creatures is to kill a certain type of person, or they hunt men, or they hunt women, or they have a certain talent that draws their victims in. So I took all of that, kept it in mind, and tried to create the creatures accordingly. But particularly with Diminished, we see a burial to the drowning dukes, which is a tradition that is reemerging, that like within the world of the Elder Tree Trilogy existed for generations. And that for me was a blend of just thinking of kind of the Nordic, Viking burials of sending the body out on a boat and setting it on fire, but also a little bit of inspiration from having witnessed military funerals from elderly in my family, of just kind of this joining and this other soldiers coming in, to pay their respects and things like that. So I thought of the combination of those two things, and I'm like, well, here are drowning dukes, and they are formerly soldiers and warriors, and now they're these creatures that are destined to rise up and fight in battle if needed. So what an honor it must be for the living to be considered and accepted into the ranks of being a duke. So just kind of thinking of it in those terms of um, presenting the body respectfully, and also including, the bits and pieces of fruit and herbs and flowers that you would find in the marsh where the drowning dukes exist. So I really enjoyed creating all of that mythology for those creatures.
Yeah, that definitely sounds interesting because I love when I say the concept of the Viking burial in itself. It's a lot of people are kind of that I found when I talked to them are kind of a little bit put off by it because they're like, why would you burn them?
Mhm.
But ultimately, if you look at it, it's a sign of respect. It's we respected and we loved that person enough to give them the ultimate peace
Mhm.
to go to the realm where they believed they would go. Um, is there a supporting character that you would possibly consider giving their own book to?
Um, I have a tendency whenever I write a book that I start thinking of what other books I could write in that world, and I kind of have I like, it's hard for me to let go. So I've definitely considered like how neat it would have been to have a full novel based on the history of Rasheen, but then I did these flashback chapters, and I'm pretty satisfied with that. The other characters that are the most interesting to me that I would kind of, maybe, I don't have any plot figured out, but like this is just a out there, maybe someday when I don't have other books to write. Uh Possibly Isla, who is, I call my Crow Witch, because she's been around for a darn long time, and has probably a lot of tales. And I already had thought of a couple like backstory parts of like her involvement in past things. So she would be one of them. And then Lachlan, the missing Fey prince that is in Diminished. I would love to write about him, but like possibly like in the future, like what he does post the Elder Tree Trilogy.
Right. I'm seeing a lot of. I've got a couple Isla's, Crowley. Ren says Isla and Crowley buddy cop series.
Yes, yeah. I that would be something that would be featured in an Isla book, because Crowley was hanging out with Isla before Aelith adopted him. So yeah, the adventures of the Crow Witch and her crow baby.
Ren says, when you've talked about Tarnished, it's been mentioned there are little Easter eggs from your life that are folded in here and there. Can readers expect more of that in Diminished?
Yeah, I would say so. I think probably in um in a darker sense, Greer, our sweet Greer, has anxiety and panic attacks, and that is fully based on my own experience. I don't know if other people who have anxiety disorders will see themselves in the experience, like the exact experience that Greer's having, but like everything that I wrote for her is something like it's how mine are handled
Right.
and how I experience anxiety and panic attacks. So that's definitely a sprinkling in of my own life. And yeah, I include one meal that the group has at one point, which was like my favorite dish when I was on my honeymoon. So yeah, it just little things like that.
Liz says you're both wrong. The innkeeper.
The innkeeper.
That's what was written.
I'm assuming as an additional story. I assume the innkeeper he probably has some stories at the very least. Like
Right.
he's seen some things.
Well, I mean, in the times that these stories are set, that's kind of, and even the Middle Age in our history, that was kind of, they were the people, they were the ones who collected the gossip and who
Yeah.
knew exactly what was going on because everybody got drunk there, everybody slept there, they knew what was
Yeah,
going
just
around.
considering the one innkeeper that kind of pops up, I think, in every single one of the books in the trilogy, like thinking of all the things that happen at his particular inn, just in the span of the trilogy, it's like this poor guy probably wants to retire.
He's done. He's tapping out. Well, would you like to read a second passage for us?
Okay. This is actually going to be the scene I was semi talking about of Greer having a panic attack. um, and this is taking place towards the beginning of the story after she finds out that there's a declaration of war on her kingdom. And so she's reacting accordingly. And in privately discussing this with her head guard, Barden. Okay. What's this about? Barden asked. He stood behind her, but didn't touch her. He remained still, waiting for her reply or some motion clarifying what she wanted. I wasn't even seeking a war, yet a war found me. And all of those in the guard will surely see death, and the blood is on my hands. Greer began. Her throat started to close, and her vision narrowed. She held out her hand, the edge of her nail creased with blood until it swelled and dripped over. Sometimes I think my father cursed me in his final moments, that he wished I suffered as much as possible. Then that he's getting his way. Her terror swelled and overtook her in a rush. Her vision was fuzzy, as if looking through a fog, and the world became off kilter. Her muscles spasmed as she choked on air. Barden's face appeared before her, his eyes concerned and brow furrowed. He reached for her and gently pressed the palm of his hands on her cheeks while his lips moved. Greer gasped, blinking rapidly as her hand patted over her heart. She pulled at the fabric of her dress, trying to get air to her chest to chase away the rapid beating as she focused on Barden's face and strained to hear his voice through the cotton filling her ears. Her lips moved, a repetitive motion, and finally the sluggish churn of Gur's brain recognized the movement on his lips. She saw him speak this a million times, her name. He was saying her name over and over as he called her back, pulled her down, tethered him to him, and yanked her from the grasp of her panic. Greer, 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 he repeated, her name finally finding its way to her ears. She gasped, a true breath filling her lungs, and with it came the barely held back wave of emotions. Her eyes burned, but she clenched them closed, refusing to cry as Barden stepped forward and enveloped Greer into his arms. She didn't even have the command over that as a few betraying tears leaked from her eyes. He held her, filling her nose with his scent of herbs that tied her to the world and gave her focus. He held her, instructing her when to breathe in and out until she finally felt her heart return to normal. The world became fully present again, and Kearney's taunting face vanished from sight, and still Barden held her.
It's official. I have to go get my copy of Tarnished so I can get caught up and get on to Diminished, because just those two passages, I'm like, can I just start here? Or KCDC asks, can you talk a little bit about the foreshadowing for your third book in Diminished without spoilers?
a wonderful question because she and I discussed this a little bit this morning. So there is I love putting in little foreshadowing hints and stuff like that throughout books. I have some of them in Tarnished. I have them definitely in Diminished. I love going back and making these little comments and things that if someone were to read Tarnished and Diminished and Vanquished and then go back and reread it again, I love the idea that they might get to a point and go, oh, and be like, God damn it, because I've had that done to myself with books that I've read in series, and I've gone back and reread them, and I'm like, God damn it, they had it right there, and I didn't know. So yeah, there are definitely sentences in this book spoken by characters that tie to things. Is that a good enough answer with
I
that
mean, that's good enough for me. Ren says this passage has me by the throat.
one? Wonderful. Good.
That's what we're going for. um, what would you say that you've learned either about yourself or about yourself as an author um, from book one to book two?
Um, I'm not sure. I guess maybe that writing the hard stuff is okay. Um, and people will understand more than you give them credit for. Uh, in book one, I was very, very hesitant to write about some of the elements that I felt were more tied to like my personal experience with life. But with book two, particularly with the mental health representation, I went a lot like further in. Like I dove in, and book three includes that even more because there's a heavy focus of grief in book three. And I was worried at first with starting to write that I was like, "Oh, is this gonna be, like, bogging it down? Are people not going to like this?" And granted, the book just came out, but I've had a lot of wonderful feedback from ARC readers and beta readers, and, people have been so kind, and I've getting messages from people saying, "Oh, wow, I see myself and I feel, like, represented with my own anxiety," or what have you, means so much. And yeah, it made me realize that for those who may not get it or may feel it's like bogging it down, that's fine. That's their opinion. But for the people who feel seen, it's so good. And it's a wonderful thing to know that I was able to kind of like provide that.
Right. I think that's the important thing with writing. I think most authors can probably say this is that when writing our books, we have the ability to not only provide representation for groups that may or may not have strong enough representation as they deserve. Let's put it that way, or issues that people may shy away from because people like, oh, you shouldn't talk about that. But when all reality, things like mental health and all those kinds of things are super super important and should be talked about. So to be able to put them in a relatable way is really nice to see in more books. What else are you currently working on that you'd like to share?
Well, I just finished my edits for book three for Vanquished. I need to send them in. And I also am working on final edits of a young adult dark fantasy novel. And I'm looking forward to beginning to outline a new adult dark fantasy that I'm hoping that I'll write this winter.
You sounds like you need a vacation.
I do. I do. I really do. I'll have a little mini vacation in November, so that will be. I'm holding out for that.
Well, something is better than nothing, really. I mean, it's just as long as you take some time to kind of step away and be like, oh,
Yeah.
I got to do anything. Just um, you have a launch event planned, correct?
Yes.
Can
Yeah.
you tell everybody a little bit about that in case they might be interested?
Well, if you are close to or feel like driving to Ithaca, New York, and the Finger Lakes, the glorious Finger Lakes this weekend, on Saturday at 4 p.m. at Buffalo Street Books, I will be doing a conversation with Ren Catrone, who was one of the people commenting. And I'll also be doing some reading, and I'll be doing a signing, and we'll have a special deal where if anyone who comes into the store that day, if they buy a copy of Diminished, they'll be able to get for free two delectable little chocolates from a local chocolatier.
Ooh,
The chocolates were created based on the characters Barden and Greer. And I may also have some goodies to give away. So
oh,
it'll be a good time.
you guys are gonna have to stop by and check it out then. Um, Courtney says, "Yeah, eat cheese and sin vacation."
Yes, that's the November. That is the November vacation. It's a
Um,
writing retreat where we don't write, but we eat cheese.
hey,
So,
I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of cheese, so there's so many that you could be there for a couple months. You might have to just, extend the vacation a little bit. Um, let's see, make sure I didn't miss anything here before we end off tonight. Casey DC asks, can you talk about how you conceptualized the Drowning Duke and why you created them to terrorize me?
so in and I'm sure Courtney will pop into the chat with the specific name of it because I'm blanking, but in The Lord of the Rings, there's a scene where they go across marshes and there's like dead bodies in the
Oh,
marsh.
yes, yeah.
Yes, and that is the initial the basis of
Okay.
Drowning Dukes. But then I was like, because I also live near marshland, and I used to take when I was conceptualizing Tarnished way in the beginning, I would be taking regular walks with my son, who was a toddler at that point, and we would be walking through the marshlands on the boardwalk and looking at the water and stuff and how it discolors things and the plants that grow in it and all that stuff and how murky it is. And I don't know, I like to write what I know. So we have a marsh, and I thought the scene in Lord of the Rings was super cool, but I was like, well, what if what if we had an actual band of warriors that rose up from the depths and fought for the good of the world, but also in the meantime were just these monsters that ate men who came too close to the shore.
I mean, it's definitely a little horror vibes.
Yeah,
That's just because I mean that scene has always creeped me out.
I love
It's
it.
like some are partially alive, some are just dead, and then you're like, are they gonna? What's gonna happen? I don't know if
Yeah.
I don't know
The
what's gonna happen.
difference is that the Drowning Dukes during the daytime, they sleep, but then at night they kind of like murk around and you can just see their eyes glowing from
Oh,
the water watching you.
uh, yeah, I'm out. Nope. Let's see here. Um, Ren says they're honestly kind of my favorite creatures. Just said they remind me of kelpies, which are one of my favorite fantasy creatures. I'm not. I don't think I'm familiar with those at all. Um, let's see here. Make sure we didn't. All right, that looks to be all of the questions that we have. So I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. For those who are interested in grabbing either Tarnished or Diminished, I do have links in the description, as well as a link to all of Erica's socials, so you can keep up on the updates on book 3 or just anything else that she may be up to at the time. Erica, again, congratulations on book 2.
Thank
Uh,
you.
we look forward to seeing what it does.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your evening.